co-host with White Labs, an e-commerce marketing agency. Today's guest is Lisa. Lisa, feel free to introduce yourself and let our viewers know a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Sure. My name is Lisa Flood, and my husband and I are the owners of Soulmate Socks. It is a mismatched sock company. So what I do is I design socks. It's the same colors in a pair of socks, but I knit the colors in a different order so they coordinate but mismatch. And we've been doing it for 24 years. And in that entrepreneurial journey, we've actually also bought the factory where our socks are made in order
Awesome.
to ensure that they could keep being made here in the U.S. We're also very environmentally minded. Everything is, so it's made in the U.S. We are B Corp certified. All of our raw material goods are recycled materials. So it's primarily recycled cotton. We do have some recycled wool lines. So lots of feel good stuff for your feet.
That is great. What inspired you to create this brand?
I'm actually a second generation owner.
Okay.
It was my mother-in-law who founded the company, and I've become very good at telling her story. So she was a hand knitter and a textile artist for many, many years. So she hand knit these as a hobby for about 20 years in the 80s and 90s, and then and was giving them away to friends and family, all of her teenage sons' friends, and decided that she could probably turn this into a business. So in the late 90s, she, took some sock manufacturing classes to figure out how her hand knitted designs could be turned into something that was able to be produced on a slightly larger scale. And in that process, she kind of started the company, found the factory in North Carolina where everything is knitted, and launched it from a spare bedroom in her house in Vermont. And it started to grow. My background personally or professionally was in e-commerce. Working at a variety of ecom.com businesses in the early 2000s. And so when I met my then boyfriend, now husband, and heard what his mom was doing, I offered to help. And she and I got along really, really well. And so eventually I quit my other job and came to do the Soulmate gig full time, and my background was in marketing, so I could do all the marketing. I'm also a hand knitter, so I also have design chops as well. And so brought that into it. And so it's been growing like that for 24 years.
That's awesome. Who is your target audience?
So that's a really funny one. When my mother-in-law started the business, she'd been giving away these socks to family and friends, and she had 2 teenage sons. And so it was a lot of teenage boys that she was giving these socks away to. And they thought that they were really cool and awesome. They were all the kids going out on skateboards in the 90s and having fun and doing that. So she really thought that her target demographic was teenage boys. And the complete flip of that is true. It's actually women, kind of in there, from 30 on, is kind of the age demographic. 30 to 60 is probably our core of it, but we do spread out from there. And it's, men and women wear it, but that's the women is the target demographic.
Gosh, I definitely could see my wife having a pair of these, 100%.
Who is men wear them? I will say, if a man is wearing a pair, it's often because they were gifted to the man by a woman.
I also see that. What makes you obviously different, but better than your competitors?
Everything's made here in the U.S. They are all, my and my mother-in-law's original designs, and, it's recycled fibers. So the fact that everything is knitted with a recycled component, and we don't just say that, we actually have gone through the B Corp certification to ensure that, we are, accountable, transparent, certifiable for all of the good that we try to do. So being recycled, being made in the U.S. is a big part of that. And that's, something that it's not easy to make these. It's actually very specialized equipment that can make this, that can take my hand knit patterns and translate it into this. And even then, once it's knit on a machine, it still has to come off and go through a hand finishing process. So it's quite the labor of love. It's not something that you can just kind of dump out by the billions in a factory without thought.
That's awesome. What are your best-selling products?
Our crew socks. A crew sock is a sock that kind of comes halfway up the calf. A quarter sock is going to be about there, and then an ankle or a no-show sock is something that you're not going to see when it's not going to come out of the shoe. But this profile here is the best-selling. That's 70% of our business is selling those socks. And so it's the cotton crew sock is the number one thing that we sell. But we do have other profiles that, have, definitely pick up in popularity, particularly the shorter length ones, pick up in popularity around the spring.
Uh-huh.
And we have a variety of different colors from brights to neutrals, and the brights sell the best year round. And then the kind of more neutral autumnal colors pick up in popularity more towards the autumn and winter. And then come Christmas, coming out with a red, white, and green sock, that's just, everyone loves a good Christmas sock. Put the whole family in, matching mismatched socks.
100%. What are so most of our listeners are entrepreneurs like yourself and have e-commerce brands. What are some challenges that you've faced in the past few years, and how are you able to overcome them?
Well, the last few years have been an interesting roller
Of
coaster of a
course.
ride. I mean, when you say last few years, obviously, I think most people are probably going to default to thinking about the pandemic.
Yep.
I imagine a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly people that manufacture overseas and import, were dealing with a lot of inventory issues, particularly in 2022 when shipping channels were, particularly over the Pacific, were quite congested and delayed. That said, even an American-made product, we, still had issues kind of getting inventory in place, even though we own the factory, just because there was supply chain pains for us, even getting raw materials in, even though our raw materials, come from either Europe or domestically, it was still quite the biggest pain. And we've seen the pandemic. I follow an economist, and one of the things that he said, kind of at some point in the pandemic, is that the pandemic was acting as an accelerant, and that companies that were going to succeed took off like lightning, and companies that were going to fail closed quickly. And we've definitely seen some attrition in our customer base in the physical stores. I think the pandemic really kind of exacerbated people that were kind of on their way out from closing their stores. We have both a direct to consumer sales channel, as well as we sell B2B into stores that then resell the product onto customers. And so we saw one of the bigger challenges is that we saw a lot of the stores that we sell into close. We
Gotcha.
don't
Makes sense.
historically work with large big box stores. We tend to really thrive on the relationships that we can nurture and curate with the small independent, mom and pop shops on Main Street. And so those stores, which didn't have the big pockets to survive the slower times, closed. And so there's been a little bit of a rebuilding of that customer base and onboarding new customers. And we feel really lucky that we have a unique product that people are drawn to and love. And so that is, going well, but it definitely created just more opportunity, but work in the process of that.
Awesome. What are some activities or successful activities you've done to promote the brand, marketing wise? Really, anything that's been successful to promote the brand?
We have always, from a retail, sorry, this is where you're going to have to edit. From the B2B side, we've had to pivot in recent years because for the first 15 years of the company's life, the main avenue to reach new stores was in-person trade show marketing. But we have seen those trade shows shrink so significantly in size that the exhibitors like myself aren't going, because buyers themselves are not going. There's been a diversification in the channels in which brands and buyers reach each other. There's a lot more online opportunity to reach new customers, and that has created kind of a vacuum for these trade shows to be a lot less successful, but they're incredibly expensive to go to. So that's been a challenge that we've been having to overcome. And it's, just luckily my background in e-commerce and digital marketing, we've been well suited to pivot into those places. So I'm grateful for that kind of digital familiarity with the landscape. But other successes is just, honestly, it's about the relationship building. We have really solid email marketing that we communicate regularly to. My staff here is fantastic at picking up the phone and calling and just saying, how you doing? It's not just a sales call. It's really about the relationship nurturing. Because at the end of the day, I mean, these are socks and we are selling something, but we have customers that have been with us for 20 plus years. And it's all because of the relationship that we've nurtured with them. I will say in the product line aspect, we a couple of years ago really started leaning more on what we've called a socks for a cause line. And so we will come out with a very specific sock that it has imagery on it. Let's say it's, one of our really popular ones has an image of a bee on it. And we have then partnered with a nonprofit, and a portion of the sales from that sock go back to that nonprofit. And like the B1 goes back to a pollinator group. We have one with a turtle that goes back to a nonprofit that recovers plastic from the oceans. And so customers have really, really connected at a strong level with those socks. So that the cause marketing is a really huge push. And it's really, the modern day people want to know that they're not just consuming for the sake of consuming, but that they're, doing good in the world at the same time. And that has been a really positive impact for us.
That's great. What advice could you give aspiring entrepreneurs looking to start an e-commerce brand?
Oh, find something you're passionate about. You have to love what you do. I had jobs before this that I knew I had someone else's dream job, and it was paying the bills, and that was fine, but you're going to be so much more successful. It's going to feel like lightning. It's going to fill up your cup in so many different ways if it's something you love and are passionate about. And I've always been passionate about crafted goods, small, maker designer companies. And so
Mhm.
getting to be a part of that and then take it over as an owner and designer has been, it fills my cup professionally in ways that, then also just kind of overfills into everything. And it makes coming to work really exciting and not a slog.
That's great. That's a good answer. What is your future plan for yourself and the brand?
Keep making mismatched socks. There's always, as the creative mindset, there's always other products that kind of filter in my brain that I want to design and make. So it's having to filter through the ideas and go, okay, I can make whatever I want, but what is the thing that sells? There have been things that we've done in the past. At one point, we also make hats, scarves, and mittens. And my scarf maker also did blankets. And I was like, this is great. Let's make some blankets together. But the blankets, and everything was made here in the US, all with recycled fibers. And the blankets are stunning. I love them. I still have them,
Yeah.
but they were too high of a price point for my, consumer that I usually work with. I mean, these were blankets that had to retail for about $175. And so that's a really high price point, particularly for my customers, even though they're selling socks that are, $22 to $25 for a sock, which is not an inexpensive sock. It's still a reasonably priced sock. But for most of those stores carrying, products of the socks in the $22 to $25 range, carrying a $175 blanket was just beyond it. So I had to understand that, like, I can make whatever I want, but I still have to be able to sell it. So it's figuring out, with all of the ideas and thoughts of everything, what are the ones that are going to, make gold.
100%. Well, Lisa, is there anything else you'd want our listeners to know about yourself, the brand, Soulmate? Obviously, Soulmate is a brand. Anything that I haven't asked you?
About the brand, or about running a business, or
Anything that you feel like I haven't asked you that you would want our listeners to know? Of course, talk about anything about the brand. I know you have some giving back. You have some of that there too. If you want to talk about any of that fun stuff, feel free.
oh gosh. Um, I mean, with the give backs, we've found that, again, so some of my personal passions are the outdoors. I'm a very
Mhm.
outdoorsy person. And so, all of the give backs that we do, again, kind of connect back to something that I am passionate about. So, we have give backs that are more environmentally focused.
Mhm.
And so it's, again, it kind of, you can branch out in interesting ways, but again, I think it needs to all kind of tie back to a level of authenticity. And if, and for me, the authenticity of things that I am passionate about, because I can tell that story so much more vibrantly and with interest, and with an opportunity to connect to customers when there's that, authenticity to it. So it's not just, making a buck. It's a connection between me and the brand, with me and the customers, all of it.
Awesome. That makes total sense. Well, Lisa, I appreciate you coming on the White Pod, and it was great learning about your story and your journey. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. This has been fantastic. I love getting to
Definitely.
chat about it and discuss all the different things.
Definitely. Thank you, Lisa.
Cheers.